Jews to Christians. I've no idea why.
Yes.
But there were lots of them in those days, I suppose. The Christians didn't particularly. But it's
even in Spain you had Maimonides as well, and
he was supposed to have been a good philosopher, wasn't he?
Yeah.
But when you say there's no compulsion, I mean it's very noble and heroic of. Oh, so sorry. My recollection of history of what happened in the 1400s, was it, in Spain under the Spanish Inquisition, the way one lot of Christians treated another lot of Christians who were Catholics, and if you weren't Catholic, you were dead, and they tortured. Quite barbaric.
That's what Karen Armstrong says. That didn't. I think it was either Karen Armstrong or somebody else. She said that it's not possible under Islam because we didn't have our, kind of like a central figure like the Pope, who was obviously disseminating
it's
everything.
Down,
exactly.
It's top down, yes.
Yes.
Hierarchical.
Yeah, so for us, I mean, that hasn't happened in the past, and any person that does do that today, you will see credible scholars clearly denouncing it and refuting it and condemning it. So,
I went on a holiday 4 years ago, after I'd sold my business, with a colleague of mine from Bradford, and I went to America for the first time in my life. This bloke was also a widower. He'd lost his wife, and he was a Hindu, also a postmaster. So 2 old postmasters are widows. He got up at, I think, 4 o'clock every morning, put a thing round his neck and spent 3 hours. I was very impressed. He was quite devout. Had lots of chats with him. But what he said was his religion is not evangelical. It doesn't seek converts, and it doesn't seek to teach other people about the Hindu religion. And I thought, well, that's pretty different from Christianity and Islam. It's a fundamental break. They are content or satisfied in their own belief of what they are. And it was telling me God has a place for everybody in the world, and you don't have to be a Hindu to be reincarnated.
The thing is, I would beg to differ, Andrew, because...
Well, that's only what he told me. I don't have inside knowledge here.
Because I've been looking into Hinduism, and I debate a lot of Hindus as well.
Yeah.
We have a lot of fruitful discussions. And I'll tell you, if you speak to 2 Hindus, you will hear 2 different answers. Because their scriptures is debatable as to which scripture is actually from God, which God is actually God, which God he comes from, who's the avatar. The religion has been so watered down and is so open to interpretation. If they do say it's evangelical, the question would be which version and which book do we preach to people?
So it's a lot of religions under some sort of grouping.
Yes.
I like that too.
He's very loud.
Yeah, do you know, if you shout louder, of course people will believe you.
Well,
and if you don't talk loudly, obviously nobody will believe you.
Unless, of course, you're speaking to somebody with, some level of intellect, they're going to listen to what you're saying rather than how you're saying it.
Yes.
Which is what you've been doing. That's why we've had such a fruitful conversation.
I'm curious about this, though. America, Israel, with...
Just look at the mask he's wearing and that will tell you what you need to know about him.
Well, yes. America will force 6 million Palestinians to sign out. But the other says something about oil, was it? America, Israel, done. Okay.
And Andrew, you know what was also interesting? This was at the beginning, and I wanted to, but I didn't want to interrupt you. You made a point.
Sorry, forgive me.
Yeah, no problem. But you said that when you see all of this design and you see everything around you, you attribute it, according to your understanding, to chance. Yeah?
Randomness.
To randomness.
Yes.
And if I may enlighten you regarding a fallacy, and feel free to check it up if you ever do get a chance.
Yeah.
It's called the fallacy of reification.
The fallacy of what was that word?
Reification.
Reification.
Yeah, it's one word, but I've just broken it down.
4 syllables.
Yeah.
Reification.
So the fallacy of reification tells us that it's a fallacy to take something which is abstract and give it concrete properties. For example, chance is a way of describing things. Chance itself doesn't create things, so it doesn't have creative properties. It's just our way of understanding and conceptualizing the variance that we see. So, for example, the rolling of a dice. Nobody would ever say the rolling of a dice created that plant pot.
So chance is an adverb.
So, well, I guess so.
Yeah.
I guess so. It's descriptive. I would say more like an adjective.
Is it describing now? Well, if you roll the dice,
Like that was an analogy.
right.
Yeah.
Or any game
Sure,
of chance.
sure.
Anything of chance.
Yeah, so it's not like we don't say, oh, chance created. Chance can't create. It doesn't have sentience, it doesn't have consciousness. And to say now that chance created or chance did this, it means it has volition. You are now giving it concrete properties. Therefore, according to just like the formal kind of logical method, it falls within the fallacy of reification. So that then leaves two other options, that you believe that either the universe created itself. We already dealt with the fact that universe can't have come from nothing. Then surely it came, or it was made.
We haven't debated that, but
Sure.
I might take a different view.
Sure.
We can't have knowledge. I mean, I think under the current model, don't they say 13.4, 13.8 billion light years
Yes.
old, and there was a big bang.
Yes.
But now we just don't understand the model. We're not clever enough. But in terms of chance, physical things can happen. Certain things, if you take, I don't know, there's a lot of ostensibly rational scientists might take from why we're here. They would talk about the Darwinian things and how there was one molecule that met another molecule and there was a flash of lightning, and chance happened to bring us to this point. It might equally well not have brought us to this point. It just happened to have done.
So the thing with Darwinism is it presupposes a miracle first, because the only way for Darwinism to start is you need to first have a organic organism in place. But the question arises, how do you get something?
The first organic thing, yes.
The first separate self-replicating DNA,
that.
which again Charles Darwin doesn't profess to answer.
No,
do Darwinists.
The standard model looks at things like this.
Which standard model?
The standard model of the universe.
Right. So the standard model of the universe says that.
Although it's wrong now, isn't it? Because of all this dark matter and this dark energy. It's
not necessarily, Andrew. The thing what they say is that dark matter, dark energy, and everything that we see around us emerged from a dense point, and and then it expanded, and then we have what we see. But
beyond that, who knows? Which is why I'm agnostic.
Beyond that, we know there is timelessness.
Yes.
Yeah, because time and space emerged from the Big Bang.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why. I think it's Dr. Maddox, who used to be the editor of the Nature Journal.
Right, I don't know him, but
and maybe Stephen Hawking you're familiar with.
Oh yes.
So Stephen Hawking says this. He says that
him and Penrose.
And
I've got the book and I tried to read it. Have you read the book? The Penrose Hawking book, because
it's a very heavy read.
I got about a third of the way in. I thought, no, it's for
very
people like
heavy
you.
read.
It's not for people like me. It's for clever people.
But no, you're clever as well. But you know what?
people.
Just sometimes you just need to just put the book down and come back after 2 months or something.
It's too much, and I'm too old now.
But here's the thing. You know what Stephen Hawking said when the Big Bang happened? He said a lot of scientists have issue with the Big Bang.
Yes.
Why? Not because of the science doesn't add up. He goes because it gives credence to creationists and believers of intelligent design. And that's the issue, that I thought you were unbiased scientists that just looked at evidence. Why is it that you have an issue with science giving you a different conclusion?
And of course, till the Big Bang is the current theory. But growing up, I remember studying chemistry at school, and the steady state was the thought of the day.
That's right.
It's always been, is, and always will be.
Absolutely.
Before they discovered it's actually expanding faster than light.
Absolutely.
But I don't think it's for mortals to even guess at this sort of stuff.
But
it's for clever people. It's for young philosophers with enormous brains to talk to each other and try and come up with an answer. It's certainly not for me. It might be a bit for you.
But Andrew, have a look at this. Allow me 1 minute. So in this 1 minute, I'll try scaffold something quickly, yeah?
Okay.
So you and me and the people around us and everything, we're dependent beings, yeah? We depend on other things. For example, I depend on food, the food depends on light, etc., etc. So if we continue that chain, that depends on something else, that depends on something else. If we continue that chain, we can have two options. Either that chain continues forever, and that leads to something called an infinite regress, which we know is not rational, it's not logical, doesn't exist in the real world. Okay. Or there is an end to that chain, who Aristotle called the prime mover, who Hume and these guys call the necessary existence. Because for us to even assume, for us to even be here, if we're dependent on something and there's an infinite chain, there has to be an end, because we're getting our powers, our faculties from something for us to even exist. Now the question is that if we end that chain, and philosophers Spinoza, Aristotle, and all of these giants like Leibniz don't have an issue with this.
Right.
Now here's what the issue is. Okay, let's say there is a necessary existence. The argument and the issue actually is that what is that necessary existence? And one of the arguments that I will posit to you is, if we see design here, immense amount of design and intelligence, then I think it's rational for us to infer that the necessary existence has the capabilities to maneuver around this design as well, and having and producing complexity would then, you can infer from there that the necessary existence has to have wisdom. Now, here's the actual point that I want to make. If the necessary existence had wisdom, it is not befitting of wisdom to create beings and just leave them wandering and leave them with no guidance. So while I would tend to agree, if I was not a man of faith, I would argue that if we accept there is a necessary existence with wisdom, then surely he would bridge that gap of knowledge from it to us.
I wish I was younger and my short-term memory was better. But as I was listening to what you were saying, it was very cleverly constructed, was that, but some of those links are just a tad tenuous.
Sure.
You know, from point A to point B, in my head, it wasn't necessarily dependent. The next point, I would respectfully take issue with some of those things.
Go for it.
About, I need to sit down and make notes about it, really, as I'm working. Because if you presented about 6, 7, 8 different tenets that didn't necessarily depend on each other.
Shall I break them down?
I don't think.
Okay.
Well, you say...
That we're dependent?
Let me focus. Point A, point B, point C, therefore point D, therefore point E. I'm not sure, personally, I would buy into that, because this where we are, there was a 5-syllable word with an if in the middle of it. I've forgotten what it was now. Where we actually are, we could have got here using the Darwinian theory of evolution. I shouldn't harp on about Darwin, but we could have evolved to this point where we are. And we don't necessarily stay. There was the point you made about regression. We don't necessarily just stay here. We could evolve into something else. We could all evolve into maniacs and nuclear bomb ourselves out of existence, nuclear bomb the Earth out of existence. We're capable of doing anything. And I think it's good fortune and chance that keeps us all in check.
But sorry, here's the difference. When it comes to science that relies primarily upon empirical, inductive kind of reasoning and evidence, but what I'm presenting to you is more deductive reasoning. So deductive reasoning is not predicated on Darwinism. Darwinism is a mechanism, and we have no issues with certain aspects.
To get from there to here.
Yeah, like I'll give you an example. Like, we have no issues with evolution. However, Darwinian evolution is something that, again, is questioned even by giants like Michael Roos and Dennis Noble and these guys. And again, there's something called the third way. So even amongst academia, Darwinian evolution has issues, because what you're doing is you're bringing in something called natural selection and the tree of life. And natural selection and the tree of life relies upon something called homology, which again is another can of worms. Evolution, i.e. stuff that we can observe, i.e. when we have antibiotics and we develop a resistance towards them, that we have no issue with. So that's the first difference. And the other thing is, look, evolution is a mechanism. We believe God is a creator of mechanisms. They're two different categories. So just because you know how a mechanism works doesn't exclude the creator of that thing.
But just because you know how it works doesn't mean there is a God. it could still happen by chance.
No, but that's my argument, that just because you know how something works doesn't exclude a designer. I would say, according to the PCR method, the principle of sufficient reasoning, that basically says that anything, that even when you're looking at things, nothing is without purpose, nothing is without reason. And that's when you start getting into the heavy stuff. But if we just keep
so nothing can be random.
That's why I said that when you say random, even scientists, atheist scientists who believe in something called, it's a position of morality, when they believe that we have no free will. It begins with D.
As I keep saying, you're much more learned than I am. I'm not familiar with this.
So even atheists, they don't necessarily, not all of them accept that we have free will. Some are determinism. Yeah.
Okay.
So
right.
There's a school of thought that believes that no, everything has been predetermined because of the forces of nature. If we were clever enough to understand which way the air goes, which way the sun shines, we can, in essence, predict everything. But that's science and philosophy.
That's a bit dubious.
I agree with you.
Although there are creationists that believe everything that is predetermined by God. They say everything is preordained. I remember. This is just a symptom, but I remember a bizarre conversation I had with somebody once. In my little post office, I was tasked with selling insurance. I was selling house insurance, and somebody said to me, I don't need house insurance because I've never been burgled.
Yeah.
And then, we then had to start trying to sell life insurance. And I thought, I wonder how that transferred. The Muslim says no, because God decides when I'm going to die, so taking out insurance either makes a difference or doesn't make a difference. That's just a little anecdote, and I understand it's just symptomatic.
We don't believe that God has decided everything and taken free will away from us. We don't believe the two follow.
So you can take out life insurance. It's not in God's hands when you die.
No, what I'm saying is that when it comes to insurance, there's an issue of riba there, which is usury, interest. There's
not saving, just insurance.
Yeah,
just
so
the chances of an old person dying is high and of a young person dying is low, and you pay money.
Yeah, that sort of stuff is not necessarily permissible amongst Muslims. Like, we don't willy-nilly take out life insurances and stuff like that. We have other ways of doing stuff in Muslim countries. This is something, it's more like a Western thing, more capitalistic. Take this insurance, that insurance. But when it comes to Muslims, what we say is that, yes, God is all knowledgeable, He knows everything. However, we do have free will, and the two don't contradict, because knowing something doesn't imply coercion. Just because you know something, that doesn't mean you're being forced into doing something. However, you're right, there are certain people that believe that we have no free will, especially amongst atheists. So what the determinists, I would argue that why would you put somebody in prison if they are subject to the elements, if they're subject to everything around them, and they can't decide and choose for themselves? Why are there punishments in place? And again, that goes into another issue.
That's very deep philosophical stuff. It's been delightful talking to you.
Likewise.
I'm going to make a move here.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you for yours. It's been a delight. This is one thing I missed though. Is the hecklers that are perhaps a little unhinged.
You have no knowledge. I have knowledge from Allah.
Yeah, he's one of them.
Oh, you got knowledge.
You have no knowledge.
I
told no money.
Jesus is not coming back.
Jesus isn't coming back.
No, he said you don't have any knowledge.
People.
Oh, and Jesus isn't coming back.
No,
I'm distraught.
Jesus married
Let's end on
distraught.
Let's end on a nice note. You don't want to get.
I'm inconsolable. Yeah. I'm so upset now. Do you know what? I'm absolutely desolate. I was looking forward to him coming back.
Go to mental hospital now.
Okay, thank you.
All the best with your daughter and her pregnancy.
3 weeks' time.
She's in our prayers and our thoughts. And
no, please don't.
I hope it goes well.
I'm agnostic.
No,
I don't think it'll make any difference.
But even
I think chance will determine the future.
But even if you believe in metaphysics, and if you look into
metaphysical, right?
We're
talking heavy.
There's a scientist called I think Mitch. I've forgotten his name, but he did a study in which he concluded that words uttered positively can emit positive effects. And this has been checked on a number of things. You can try this at home. You have rice and in water, and then you have 3. One of them, just say praise to it. Another one, just shout at it, scream at it. The third one, ignore it. And then just compare the mold growth. It's something you can try at home. So positive words always have an effect. And as a true agnostic, you should always be open to this.
I'm very open to it.
Otherwise, you're just an atheist in disguise.
Yeah, no, as an agnostic, I actually believe in all faiths, in all gods, and if you take a rational view, you'd be foolish not to, because it doesn't cost anything to be a Christian, a Muslim, a Jew, a Buddhist, because one of them might exist, and if you accept all of them, you know, can I ask you a very personal question?
Sure.
Are you a philosophy graduate? I mean, you're a very erudite man.
I've done a bit of philosophy, yes.
When you say you've done a bit, have you got a PhD from Oxford or
I don't,
something?
no. It was a postgraduate course. It's not that extensive, nothing to brag
So
about.
you've done postgrad philosophy?
Minor, like 1 year, for 1 year.
Well, very intelligent, delightful.
No, likewise.
Chatting with
The
you.
honour's mine.
Okay.
And I wish you all the best.
Be
How
well.
about that?
Be well.
Take care.